Hello and welcome to Getaway Day, episode 28. I am Mason, he's Gautham, and he is Matthew. Um, you may have noticed this is a little bit of an odd time for us to be podcasting since we usually go on Monday nights, but it's October and everything's weird in October, including this show. So on Monday, we did our wild card game preview. Tonight, we're doing our American League Division Series preview, and tomorrow we'll be back with the National League Division Series preview. So before we get into it, if you like our podcast, please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, your favorite podcasting app. We're there. Go ahead and subscribe to us so that you never miss any future episodes. And let us know your thoughts either through the YouTube comments and Apple Podcasts review, or by following us and reaching out to us on our Facebook or Twitter accounts at Getaway Day Pod. So with that being said, Gowie, Matthew, how are you guys doing?
Doing great. Ready for this game tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun game tonight, but that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about last night's game and the games that start tomorrow for the American League. So last night, the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees went head-to-head in a one-game playoff in Fenway Park for a spot in the American League Division Series. It was Nate Eovaldi, went 5 1/3 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, gave up a home run to I don't even remember. Who did he give up the home run to?
Rizzo.
Anthony Rizzo. There we go. In the 6th inning. And then versus Garrett Cole, who only pitched 2 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned runs, giving up home runs to both Xander Bogaerts and Kyle Schwarber. So the final score ended up being 6-2, with Boston now moving on to the American League Division Series. So, Gowie, Matthew, what were kind of the big things you guys saw in last night's game, the big game changers, anything that might be important moving forward?
I mean, first one you mentioned is pitching. Like, who saw Garrett Cole going out there and going 2 innings of baseball? I mean, the Yankees needed him to be Garrett Cole, and he wasn't.
Yeah, for sure. That was a big surprise. One thing was a little bit of an omission on our part in the last episode where we were previewing this game. We didn't mention that he had a hamstring injury in early September, and he really hasn't looked the same since he's been back. Even though he's made 5 starts, he really hasn't been, regular Garrett Cole. So maybe that played a role, but if he was out there, he was kind of expected to do what he is paid all that money to do.
Yeah, definitely. You said there, his last 5 starts, he had a 6.15 ERA, which does not bode well, and clearly he pretty much did the same thing. Meanwhile, Eovaldi on the other side, his first 5 starts against New York, he had a 2.01 ERA.
Yeah. Now with Cole, something I noticed, I think it might have been more mental than physical last night. Just watching his reaction to some of his own pitches, especially the 2 home runs, and then there was a mound visit just between Higgy and him, and Higgy looked at him just all pissed off and said, "I'm out of this game." And then about 2 batters later, Boone came out and yanked him. And so he wasn't there mentally. And in the playoffs, especially in a one-game win or go home situation, you have to be there mentally. There's no room for coming in, throwing 2 innings, and just kind of mailing it in for the day. You have to compete. Even if you're hurt, your mind kind of has to be there. And maybe Boone should have warmed someone up earlier, because I think he went or pitched into the 3rd inning, right?
Yeah, he didn't get any outs in the 3rd, but that's an incredibly short start. Probably one of the shortest starts he's ever made.
It was tied for his shortest start of the season.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So
definitely want to go. I want to go back to a big play in the game in the 6th inning, where Evaldi had given up the home run to Rizzo, then he gave up a single to Judge. He gets pulled from the game after he had been cruising. Matthew was going to call him the playoff king or something. But things can obviously change in a hurry in the playoffs. And managers always have pretty quick hooks on their starters. So Ryan Brazier comes in to face Stanton, and Stanton hits a ball way up high on the monster, probably
his second
6
of the
feet.
day.
Yeah, second of the day, high off the monster. He thought he got this one just like he thought he got the first one. So he's kind of just jogging it to first. Judge thinks it's a home run as well, so he doesn't initially start running that hard to second. He realizes when it hits off the wall, and he kind of picks it up on the way to third, but he's slowing down on the way to third, but his base coach tells him to go, and Hernandez fields the ball in center field, gets it to Bogarts. Bogarts makes a quick exchange and throws home and gets Judge by probably 10 feet. It was not close at all. To be honest, it was a bad send because they could have had second and third with one out, and that second run was not going to be, the tying run. So that was obviously a big play in the game.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and say it was a good send, but it wasn't as bad of a send as it looked in the moment. And I say this, I was listening to, might have been CBS Sports or something this morning, and Will Middlebrooks, pitcher that used to pitch for the Red Sox, was on there, and he said that he went and watched it back, and basically what had happened is off the wall, it was being thrown in. All of the infielders were saying, throw it to second, because they're basically trying to cut off the lead run. And if they can get Stanton out at second, they didn't really think they had a shot to get Judge at home. So everyone on the field was yelling, go to second. Everyone's pointing, go to second. So at that point, when Phil Nevins saw the ball take a one-hopper, that was basically a signal to him that they just needed to go for it because they're not going to be able to get that out. And it was actually just a great play on Xander's part to realize he did have time because of that slow start by Judge off of first. So it wasn't a bad send so much as it was a great read by Xander. Now, in the situation that it was in that big of a game, yeah, you probably should have held up, but in a normal situation, that's the right call. So just a little bit of extra background there. So,
yeah, Yankees could have ran a little harder during that game for it being that one-game playoff. I mean, Stanton, well, I thought he had that home run in the first inning. He could have walked a little bit faster to first base and maybe made it to second base by the time that ball hit the wall.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, I completely understand that first one not running full speed because I thought that was like across the street. So the second one, he should have learned from the first one.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Oh, well. Yeah. Let's see. Was there any other big takeaways from that game that you guys saw?
Red Sox played a really clean game. If they can keep that going, then they might give the Rays a little run for money. On the Yankee side, the last thing I'll say is it could be a very interesting offseason for them. Who knows if they're going to keep Boone, and I could see them making a whole bunch of changes to the team as well.
Yeah. Did you guys see the comment that Boone made about
other teams catching up?
Yeah, the rest of the teams have caught up, and so now we need to come up with a new brand of baseball. Well, they've gotten second place 4 out of the last 5 years. I'm pretty certain the rest of the league caught up about 5 years ago. So I'm not sure what Boone's talking about.
I didn't understand that comment at all. He seems confused.
Yeah, a little bit. It almost like epitomizes that Yankee mentality, like they're supposed to win it every year. They're the best in the league when they haven't been for a while now. But this episode's not about them anymore because they're out of the playoffs. So that's something we should come back to in the offseason. But you do bring up a good turning point here, basically, with the Rays and Red Sox. The Rays are now going to be playing the Red Sox in the ALDS, and the Rays 162 on the year, 206 run differential. The Red Sox 92 and 70 with a plus 80 run differential. The Rays have won 11 out of the 19 head-to-head matchups between these two teams this year, winning 3 of the 4 final series and splitting a 4-game in the other. So the Rays have definitely been the better team here in the second half out of these two. So I'm curious what Gowie, your kind of matchup that you're looking at in this game is, or in this series.
So we know that the Rays develop their pitchers super well. They've got a bunch of really young pitchers that are going to be making starts for them. In Shane McClanahan, Shane Baz, Drew Rasmussen. These guys don't have a whole lot of experience, and there's really not a big expectation that they're going to last deep into these games. So they're going to be going to their bullpen a lot, and we know the Rays have a great bullpen as well. So the question I'm asking is, how are they going to be able to cover all these innings? Because I do think they have a good bullpen, like I said, but I'm not sure it's at the same level that it was last year. Andrew Kittredge has been really good. Obviously, don't have Diego Castillo anymore. Pete Fairbanks, Colin McHugh has been kind of like that multi-inning guy for them. But it's just a lot of innings to cover for one bullpen if the starters can only go, 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine. That's kind of been the Rays brand of baseball all season. I don't have the exact number in front of me because I don't remember who tweeted it, but it's like Kevin Cash has used like 11 or 12 different starters this year. He's used openers. He's used actual like legit 5 to 6 inning starters like Jameson Taillon when he was healthy. He mix and matches his bullpen probably better than any other manager in the league. Like that man should probably win manager of the year every year, but he can't and won't because, I mean, manager of the year is one of those where they like to recognize someone different every year. But so I don't have stats to back it, but my gut tells me they'll be perfectly fine. Even if they're starters.
I'm sure they have a plan for it too. They also have Luis Patino in the bullpen, so he's a guy that he started before, so he can potentially give them three plus innings at a time. Yeah. So it might be like a tandem situation.
Well, and is Michael Wacha coming out of the pen, or is he not making the roster?
Yeah, he'll probably be available in the pen too. He's been pretty good recently.
Yeah, and he has a lot of playoff experience, so that could be good for them. But... All right, Matthew, what are you looking at in this series?
Gowie hit on a little bit, but rookies, and more rookies, which I think is like 90 Bay's roster. I mean, you hit on the starters. The first 2 are true rookies, and then the third is in his first full season. Couple more guys coming out of the bench. That's just pitching. Then you talk about a Rosarena, who was playoff hero last year, not to mention the best rookie in baseball in Wander Franco. It's a lot of pressure to put on young players. Now, Tampa Bay does an incredible job of balancing out their veterans and young guys, so they never have too many on one side. So for them, it's just, can they all work together and not get overwhelmed by the moment? Because Boston and Houston or Chicago is not going to make it easy on them.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. This is an incredibly young team, and Tampa's always an incredibly young team just because the way they turn over their roster every year. So it's going to be interesting if they can have more guys that do what Randy did last year and go and hit like 15 postseason home runs or whatever it was. Like Randy hit almost as many home runs in last postseason as he has this entire season. So if they can have Wander continue his on-base streak, Randy keep being good, you get guys like Taylor Walls, and if Vidal Brujan ends up on the taxi squad and comes up or whatever, if those guys can contribute, they're going to be in great shape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Wander could really be the key for them here because, well, first off, I gotta say Nelson Cruz is old enough to be Wander Franco's dad. Like, that's a pretty fun 2-3 in the lineup to
Have we
have.
seen a paternity test? Are we certain he's not? Just
Yeah,
saying.
but Wander Franco's been incredible just to start it off. I don't think people maybe know how well he's doing, but he's put up 3.5 B WAR already in just a very small number of games and playing great defense at shortstop. So people were talking about that Adames trade. Like, why did they trade for 2 relief pitchers? Well, one of those relief pitchers was Drew Rasmussen, who's starting games for them now in the playoffs. And then that opened up the spot for Franco to take over shortstop, and I think he could dominate this playoffs.
Yeah. And then the big thing I'm watching for is actually more on the Boston side. And so just for a little bit of background to build up into this, Tampa and Boston are pretty evenly matched when it comes to offense. Tampa is the 4th best team WRC plus this year at 109. Boston is 6th with a 107. In fielder independent pitching, Tampa is the 5th best team in the league at 3.79. Boston is 7th at 3.95. Then you look at ERA. And Tampa is the 4th best team with a 3.67, and Boston falls all the way down to 14th at a 4.27. And this is mostly because of defense. Boston's defense is pretty bad. Their DRS as a team this year is 2. They're 19th in the league in DRS. The Rays are 4th with 66. So defensively, the Rays are an amazing team. Beating out, just behind the Rangers, which is kind of surprising to me, the Astros and the Cardinals, which are 2 incredibly well-renowned defensive teams. So with everything being so evenly matched, I'm looking at that defense for Boston, and I'm really kind of scratching my head about if they can hold up. If they can, Boston could take this series. If they can't, they're probably screwed because Tampa has 4 40 home run guys, and Lowe, Zunino, Meadows, Randy Arozarena. And 3 of those 4 guys are very capable of doubles, triples. And so if that defense can't hold it together, they're screwed. So, let's see. Yeah, so that's kind of the big matchups we're looking at. Do you guys have any specific players that you're looking at in this series that you think are make or break players?
Yeah, you just mentioned one in the home run group there. That's Brandon Lau. So he hit 39 home runs this season. That's pretty crazy considering the start that he had to the year, which was not good. He wasn't very good in the playoffs last year. He struggled a lot with the strikeouts, but it seems like he's corrected the course this year, and he is mashing to end the season. And they were talking about it a little bit on the broadcast yesterday. In the postseason, the home run is the king. They were saying around 75% of the time, if you out homer your opponent, you're going to win the game. So Brandon Lau, he just had a 3-homer game in the last week of the season against the Yankees. I could see him, hitting a bunch of home runs this month and helping the Rays win a bunch of games.
Yeah. Matthew, who you got?
I don't know if there's just one player here that I'm looking at. Gowie touched on Tampa Bay, so thinking about Houston, I mean, they're just so deep everywhere. Boston. Wow. I completely skipped a team here. Boston. What was I mean, Schwarber had a very big home run yesterday, and he was a key offseason or mid-season addition. And if he can keep up, almost return to that torrent pace he had in Washington for the postseason, do kind of what Arozarena did last year for Tampa Bay, he alone could power Boston's offense, and that'd be huge for them going forward against a tough Tampa Bay team.
Yeah, agreed. And my guy is kind of playing right off of Schwarber here. So in the final series of the season, Boston was playing in an NL park, so they didn't get their DH. So they threw JD Martinez out and left, which I think is Kyle Schwarber's position there, right? Hunter
He's been
Renfroe
playing
and
some
right.
first base as
Okay.
well.
But
Yeah.
JD Martinez sprained his ankle and missed the wild card game, and they're not 100% certain that he's going to be ready for this series. He might be on the roster, but he might not be playing. So we'll see how that goes. So I'm actually looking at the unnamed player filling in for JD Martinez, because JD Martinez is a huge bat for this lineup. And so with him being out, who's taking his place, and can they produce at his level? Is it Hunter Renfroe? Is it going to be Schwarber as a DH? What are we looking at here? How are they going to fill that void?
Well, so what they did in the wild card game and a lot down the stretch actually is they've been using Bobby Dahlbeck, who was really good in the second half. So he played first base in that game. Schwarber DH'd. So I think that's what they're going to have to go with if Martinez is not out there.
Yeah, and that's not a bad backfill, but it's still one of those you would much rather have JD there. So
yeah, for sure.
Let's see. Any final notes on the Red Sox Rays series? Going once?
Just that I think if the Rays can kind of grind out the beginnings of games, because if they can get past like the starters, like Chris Sale and Evaldi and Eduardo Rodriguez, right, and they get into that bullpen, I feel like that's going to be the problem spot for the Red Sox to keep up in this series.
Yeah, agreed. That was a concern we had with Boston here in the wild card game. So definitely carries over here. So yeah, I guess. What are you guys' predictions for this series? Who's winning? How many games is it taking?
I'll say Rays in 3.
Okay. I was gonna say Rays in 4.
I was also gonna take Rays in 4. I just think the Rays are too complete of a team to not win this series in particular. When we get to the next series, that could be an entirely different question. And I vote we get to who that opponent could be that could potentially upset them. So our other ALDS matchup is the Chicago White Sox and the Houston Astros. So this is going to be the first postseason matchup between these two teams since 2005 when they faced off in the World Series. Houston moved back to the American League in 2012 ish, 13, somewhere in there. Right. And so this is the first time they faced off in the postseason since. Chicago won that matchup by sweeping the Houston Astros. This year, Chicago made their way through a very underwhelming American League Central. Sorry, Matthew, no offense.
None taken.
Womp womp.
Where Houston took the crown in a surprisingly competitive, although not for the division title so much as just for playoff positions in general, surprisingly competitive American League West, with the Mariners, the A's being in it, the Angels not being like a complete rollover team. But so coming into it, it looks like Houston has played better competition, but does that mean they're the better team? Well, their head-to-head matchups this year, Houston had Chicago's number. They won 5 of the 7 games. They swept Chicago in Houston before the All-Star break. Chicago did come back and take 2 of 3 after the All-Star break, though. So in the second half, maybe they're a better match team. What are you guys' thoughts?
This is just so reminiscent to Cleveland in the 2017-18 time period when they just beat up on the AL Central, played nobody, and then got to the postseason, and it was like shell shock because the AL Central is just terrible. And as good as the White Sox offense is or can be, I just don't know if it'll hold up against teams outside of that division.
Yeah. So I guess something I forgot to mention, the White Sox finished the season with a 93 and 69 record, with a plus 160 run differential, and Houston was 95 and 67 with a plus 205. So looking at the standings, they're pretty evenly matched. But yeah, that it definitely there with you, Matthew, where the White Sox did play quite a few, they played a lot more inferior teams. Sorry, those words are hard to say all in a row.
It almost led them to getting bored during the season too. After July 20th, they only went 35 and 32.
Yeah.
And
So.
I mean, like, it's hard to keep up that same level of effort going against these inferior teams every time out. And can they get their head right for this important series?
Yeah. So I guess with that being said, what is the biggest matchup that you're looking at here in this series, Matt?
Not players. I'm looking at the guys managing these two teams because one may die during the series. That's how old they are. But no. So Dusty and Tony.
Care to wager which one dies?
Whichever throws the first punch.
Or takes the first punch, probably.
I don't know. That effort level to rear back and throw might just cause them to keel over.
That's a good point. All right. Sorry. Get back to your point.
So Dusty and Tony are 104 and 104 against each other in the regular season. They've only played each other once in the playoffs, in which Dusty got the better of La Russa in the 2002 NLCS. The good thing about them is they, like, some good background is they played together in 1971 for the Braves, and then Tony actually managed Dusty in 1986 with the A's. But there has been a lot of bad blood between these two. In 2002, in that NLCS game, Kenny Lofton did a home run trot that I think was in slow motion. Took him so long to get around the bases there, which then immediately prompted an inside pitch that caused the benches to clear, with a shouting match between La Russa and Baker.
Who was Dusty with at the time?
The Giants.
Okay. Yeah. And so ever since then, both of those guys and both of their teams have always been on edge when playing each other. Could something happen this series?
Yeah, now I'm just picturing a cage match between Tony and Dusty. Like, I would pay good money, and I would probably bet on Dusty. But actually, I want to speak about these managers just and how they do their jobs and how it's changed over the years. So Tony La Russa is the guy that revolutionized bullpen use, kind of in the modern sense of a lot of changes, matching up for lefty righties, stuff like that. And now it feels like he's kind of behind in the tactical side of the game. He doesn't really. I don't have a lot of confidence that he's gonna make the right decisions in the game. Dusty, on the other hand, has completely changed as a manager over the years. I mean, he's been doing it for a long time as well. He was known as the guy that would leave his starting pitchers in way too long. He did that with the 2003 Cubs with Mark Pryor and many other pitchers. But now I feel like he has a really good sense of how to develop the young pitchers, and I think he's done a really good job of that with the Astros. They have a bunch of young guys who have really flourished this year under him, and I feel like he's gotten better over the years as a manager.
Yeah, agreed. And it kind of shows just over the last couple years. Like, Dusty has managed like 4 teams in the last 10 years or something. He was with now he's with the Astros. He was with the Nationals. He was with the Reds.
Yeah.
And so he's seen all these different teams with all these different makeups as far as their bullpen, their rotation, whatever. So he's had to learn to adapt by being in those different situations. Tony, on the other hand, has only managed now 3 teams in his career, with the Cardinals being the majority of that time. And so it was always kind of the way that he wanted it built in the first place. So he never really had to learn to adapt. So, and then he was out of the game from 2011 until this year. So, yeah, I'm kind of right there with you that LaRusse is a little bit behind the times now. And so,
and then one more thing on Dusty, I feel like he has this strong advantage on the interpersonal level. Like he's always been a great guy to keep the clubhouse together, and always been super respected. I feel like, and then when he's a good tactical manager as well, like that, just a great combination. And the Astros are in great hands.
Yeah. So, Gowie, what's your matchup to watch here?
Yeah, so I was talking about the starting pitching, and that's the biggest matchup in the series to me because both these teams have great starting pitching, and I think that's going to make the difference in the series. So the White Sox have Lance Lynn going game one. They have Lucas Giolito going game two. Right now, it's Dylan Cease in game three. Carlos Rodon's a little bit of the wild card here because he's been dealing with some fatigue, some soreness. Rick Hahn said that he would be available in the series one game. So I'm not sure if that's going to be a start or just a relief pit appearance. And then on the Astros side, they've got Lance McCullers, Framber Valdez, Luis Garcia, and then beyond that, they actually have a lot of depth as well. So they have Jake Odorizzi, Zach Greinke, and Jose Urquidy, and Christian Javier. So this is a situation where I feel like they are going to use all these guys to give them innings because they have Ryan Presley at the back end of their bullpen, but getting there is a little bit of a challenge because they don't really have any other very strong relievers that they can rely on other than Presley. So that's what I'm looking for.
All right. Did you have a comment on that, Matt?
No, not really.
All right. Yeah. So my matchup is actually, I don't know if you necessarily call it the White Sox left fielders versus Houston pitching or Aloy versus lefties or what, but I'm looking at Aloy Jimenez essentially in that left field spot out in Chicago. So Aloy this year was out for an extended period of time, came back. He was hot for maybe a week, and then he kind of cooled off. Well, he's been really good against righties in the 51 games that he's been back. And he's hitting 275 with 8 home runs, and he's doing Aloy things against righties. When you get to lefties, it's an entirely different story. He's only hitting 170 off lefties and 2 home runs, and I don't have his advanced stats here on the splits, but he's just a completely different player. And in game one, Framber Valdez is a lefty, so I'm looking to see, can Aloy kind of turn it around, start hitting lefties here in this postseason, or alternatively, is Tony going to put in Andrew Vaughn, who has been really good against lefties this year, hitting 269 with 8 home runs. He has been playing left this year. So are they going to be willing to platoon Vaughn and Aloy out in left, or are they going to trust Aloy to go up against a guy like Framber Valdez? Because I think that could be a difference maker in this series, is that extra spot in that lineup. If the White Sox can mash, I think they've got this series in the bag. So,
one thing I'll say about Vaughn is that he's slowly lost playing time over the last month and a half. I think he hit 095 in September and October, so he's really been struggling recently. So, not sure if he's in Tony's good graces, and it's probably pretty tough to get out of that.
Yeah. So, but that is still my my position to watch there. So, I guess that since I sort of went with a player there, I guess I'll go to my other player to watch. I think my other difference maker for the series could be Craig Kimbrell. So, since coming to the White Sox this year, he's been pretty bad, honestly. A 5.09 ERA, a 1.217 WHIP, 4.56 FIP, giving up 5 home runs and pitched 23 innings. Kimbrell is usually dominant in the postseason. or at least really good, if not dominant. His career postseason stats: 3.68 ERA, still a 1.2 WHIP, but he adds 13.7% win percentage added, or championship win percentage added over his career. So he's a guy you want to have on your team in the postseason. And that's in 22 innings. So if he can get back to that, Craig Kimbrell, and be a lockdown 8th inning guy with Liam Hendricks, then I think that the White Sox have sealed this series. I think they can beat the Astros, even though they kind of just meandered through the AL Central to get here. I think they could still be the better team if Kimbrell turns it on. So, yeah, Scowie, who's your...
I'm with you. I'm with you with if they can get Kimbrell right and pitching like he was at the beginning of this season, basically the last 2 innings are just set up, or 2+ innings, honestly, because with these guys potentially pitching longer outings than the traditional 1 innings, the game is much shorter for the White Sox if they have the lead.
Yeah. So.
My guy is player for the Astros on offense. We haven't really talked about the Astros offense that much, but they were amazing this season. Again, the player I'm going with is 24-year-old Kyle Tucker, who quietly, I don't know how this is even possible, but he had the best WRC plus for any of the starters on the Astros. It was 147. He was a pretty hyped up prospect, and he kind of flopped in 2018 when he first came up, but every year since then he's slowly gotten better and better, and now he's kind of a true star, I would say. And when you think of the Astros, you're thinking more Altuve, Correa, Jordan Alvarez, Yuli Gurriel, Michael Brantley. You don't really think about Kyle Tucker, but he's just as good, if not better, than any of those other players I just mentioned. So they've got a scary lineup, and they make a ton of contact. They barely strike out, and Tucker's kind of the encapsulation of that type of player, because he only strikes out 15.9% of the time, and he walks 9.3% of the time. So making a ton of contact, and hit 30 home runs this year. So he didn't sacrifice any power. I think Tucker is my pick.
All right, I like that pick.
I'm going to take a page from Mason that he did with Boston, and I'm going to go with a player that most likely will not appear this series in Carlos Rodon. That 35 and 32 slide might not have been as much of a coincidence when you think that Rodon only threw 28 innings in the last 2 months of the season. And missing him from that rotation after he threw that no-hitter earlier this year, that could be a big blow to them alone. I mean, they have Giolito and Lynn, obviously, and in a shortened series, you don't need a lot of starters. But still, if you're able to go to those, have 3 top-of-the-line guys, it's hard to beat that.
Well,
and they're currently missing one.
Don't undersell Dylan Cease, though. He's been really good this year, too.
Right, so. But the more top starters you have, the more you're able to shorten the length of the game by, even if Rodon, Lynn, or Giolito is only able to throw 4 innings, you can throw in any of those other guys, such as Cease, and throw another power arm in there that can throw a couple innings when needed.
Don't forget about Michael Kopech and Garrett Crochet, the aces in the bullpen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it could definitely be a scary team. So I guess we should do predictions now. So who's going to win this series, and how many games? Because I think this is going to be a great series. This is probably the one I'm looking forward to most out of all of the matchups that are possible in the postseason period. At least for the division series portion. So.
Yeah, I'm so torn on this one. I've been going back and forth. So I'm going to say it's definitely going to be a 5-game series. I'm going to go with the Astros.
All right. Who you got, Matt?
I'm also going to the Astros, except I can't decide if it's going to be a 5-game series or a 3-game sweep. Because the White Sox just feel like the team that could go either way. and they're either going to make this a great series, come close to winning it, or they're pretty much just not going to show up.
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to disagree with you guys this time. I'm going to go with the White Sox, and I'm going in 5. I think it's going to come down to the Astros bullpen just being inferior compared to the White Sox. So I think this entire series comes down to who has the better bullpen. Even if Kimbrel is not right, that White Sox bullpen is still scary. With Liam Hendricks, Garrett Crochet, Michael Kopech, they have so many options that Kimbrel is just icing on the cake. But so I think I'm going with Chicago in 5. So, all right. Any final thoughts on this division series for either of the matchups? Going once,
Nope.
Going twice, sold to the highest bidder. So thank you guys all for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow with our NLDS preview. Same time? Same time? Yes or no?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Same time. So 7 p.m. Eastern. So once again, you can find this podcast and all our other episodes of this podcast on all your favorite podcasting apps, from Spotify to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc. Video version is always posted on YouTube. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Getaway Day Pod, and let us know what you think of our predictions here. Tell us how wrong we are and why we're wrong. I'm interested to hear you guys' opinions. So that's all we've got for you tonight. So thank you.